Since I'm seeing Suicide Squad tonight, I thought I'd rewatch and review the highly divisive film that comes right before it. So Batman v Superman was one of the most anticipated films this year, and then it turned out to be one of the biggest disappointments of the year. For me, I liked the movie on first viewing. I actually really liked it on first viewing. I went to go see it opening night in a packed crowd at an XD theater, and the movie-going experience surrounding seeing the movie was really, really good. I mean, the crowd was like hooting and hollering, and as soon as Wonder Woman shows up, people like screaming and cheering like, ah! And so it's just a really fun time at the movies. And so when I first saw it, I probably would have rated it like a 7.5. I could see where there's some big problems, but I really enjoyed the film. And then after reading and watching multiple reviews of the movie, having seen it a second time in the theaters, I started to go, okay, I need to temper this a little bit, and probably would have brought my review down to, a 6, a 6.5. I still enjoyed it. The things I liked were still good enough that I would have to recommend it to say I liked this movie, and you might too. However, it definitely, the flaws showed. There were big, big problems with this movie. And now they've released the Ultimate Edition. So as I review this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and talk about the differences between the two as I kind of go through it. If you're watching this, you've seen the movie. I don't need to give you a synopsis, so I'm just going to talk about stuff. I'm going to spoil it. So let's start talking about the movie. So what's good about this movie? For me, just seeing these characters on screen together is just a very enjoyable experience. Even if I would have liked to see more of some things, if I would have liked more dialogue, more time with them partnering together, I wanted all of that, but that's to say I liked what was there and wanted more. And so just the concept of the movie inherently is enjoyable to see come together, come into real life. Talking about things we like to see on the screen, Ben Affleck as Batman, I thought that he did a very strong job. This is the most physically active Batman we've ever seen in the Batman suit. He's actually moving. If you go back and rewatch some of the Nolan stuff, the fight choreography doesn't really hold the test of time, and especially like you see the fight with him and Bane, and I mean it's just like clunky arm movements, like they can't move their heads and their arms. Very weird. This Batman can move in the suit, and you just see incredible action sequences. That one at the warehouse is just like the first time I saw it, I was like, holy, what on earth? I mean, just out of nowhere, this incredible action sequence is so fast-paced, moving, slamming people, broken bones, like if this was a real guy that dropped into a room and had to battle 20 guys. I mean, he'd be moving fast, throwing guys all around, doing what he can to take them out. And to that point, the action in this movie overall, I thought was very, very strong. Zack Snyder, for all the things you want to say negative about him, he can shoot action where you can see what's going on with interesting choreography. And I think that's what you see in this movie is well-shot action. And for a movie with lots of action, that's a really good thing. Moving on, I thought a number of the characters were very strong. Talking about Ben Affleck, he was also good with Bruce Wayne, in particular in those scenes with Alfred, by Jeremy Irons, was just excellent in this movie, and their interactions between the two of each other. Very, very great scenes of just exploring these two people with this long background. We've got an Alfred that has kind of that flair from the Batman the Animated Series, where he's making little quips kind of at Bruce Wayne's expense, like the one guy that can say this stuff to Batman, and it's Alfred, and he's doing it constantly and being that voice of reason while being that aide at the same time. And I really appreciated the relationship between the two of them, and I look forward to seeing more of it. Other people I really liked that I haven't seen too many people talk about Laurence Fishburne as Perry White, and I thought in this movie, I mean, he kind of like was stealing every scene that he was in. He was just so high energy, so fun, funny, but you could see where he was coming from and skeptical, and he was the hard boss, but at the same time, he was very understanding. And another thing, I talked about the action in it that I really liked. Once again, the final battle at the end of it with, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman all battling Doomsday. I thought it was well choreographed, cool action sequences where you get to see a bunch of neat stuff, going back to, once again, our Batman that can move, like he's going around with his grappling gun, flying around trying to escape laser blasts from Doomsday's eyes. And, it looks like someone's moving around trying to do this, that's been training their whole life to be able to battle strange, weird things. And so just saw some really neat action, getting to see Wonder Woman in action for the first time. Very cool. Whether that she's using a sword, a lasso, or shield, all very interesting stuff that's fun to watch and to look at. And just kind of final thing on this, just some of the dialogue, as I mentioned, between Alfred and Bruce Wayne is just very strong, digging deeper, little sentences that carry so much weight to them are so powerful. But speaking of dialogue, let's go into the bad. While the dialogue between Bruce and Alfred is good, the dialogue between characters like Clark and Lois is not so good. Just very forced exploratory dialogue. And supposedly there's rumors that Ben Affleck would, between takes, go back to his trailer and would rewrite his own dialogue. And he's won an Oscar for screenwriting. I mean, he's a great screenwriter with incredible talent. And so you've got this guy that's a world-class director, world-class screenwriter rewriting his lines, and everyone else just kind of has, whatever you got. Moving on, the whole portrayal of Superman in this movie is really, really weird. He's supposed to be kind of like this character is kind of like a living Boy Scout, that's kind of a really nice guy with incredible powers, raised with old traditional values, and you see that in the way that he lives, and the way he uses the power that he does have. And here he just seems like this really mopey guy, and it's not that they couldn't have had sequences of him being heroic and being the hero, it's just that they didn't. And so especially the Ultimate Edition is 3 hours long, and in this 3 hours you never really get a good sequence where Superman just gets to be the good guy. You never get that sequence like from Superman Returns where the plane is crashing and Superman catches the plane and lands it, and everyone's like, oh wow, and just wowed by him, and just thinking of him is awesome. Instead, you just get these kind of mopey sequences that are just like montage, where you get like 2 shots of him flying through a crowd of flame, carrying a person, drops a person in a crowd, or you just see like that shot, but you don't get the heroic side to it where you actually get the sequence where there's tension. No, you just see like essentially what could be just a screenshot with a headline instead of getting him to be the hero. And that's weird in a movie this long that they never had a sequence where you felt him being heroic. Even the opening scene, or I guess it's 15 minutes into the movie, but where he saves Lois, it doesn't come off heroic. It just comes off like he flies in, punches one guy, and flies off with her. It doesn't have the heroism that you want to see from Superman. And once again, he's just mopey because of the way they've written him and the context under which they're even putting the things that they do montage. The montage of him saving people in the middle of the movie is intercut with interview footage asking the question, should there be a Superman? Which is a good question to ask. It's even an interesting question to ask. The problem is when Superman is doing his heroic things and kind of like frowning while doing it, while people are saying, do we need a Superman? Is this too much power? Is he working unilaterally? It sucks the joy and excitement out of this hero. And it's like it's a very strange way to make a superhero movie, to intentionally downplay the heroism and make your heroes not seem like heroes. Now, slightly improved in the Ultimate Edition is that Clark Kent gets some time to be a reporter and go and look into things. And it really expands the backstory of why Clark Kent doesn't like Batman so much. It's not just a few lines of dialogue about this Bat vigilante. No, he's looking into it and he's discovering, oh, this Batman is becoming more violent. He's targeting poor neighborhoods. People are dying because of what he's doing. He's killing people at times. And so you can see where Superman Clark Kent would be frustrated with this. And so that's a slight improvement, but still the character overall, we don't get the joy and the hope that's supposed to come with Superman. Speaking of what I just mentioned, Batman kills people in this movie. So if you've seen it, Batman kills people. And when I first watched it, I was just so excited in kind of the moment that I didn't even notice it really. I mean, I noticed it a little bit, but it didn't like stick out to me the way they did on multiple reviewings and multiple watchings, where I was thinking, like, does he kill people in this sequence? And it's like, yeah, like he just threw a car at people. Yeah, he just fired the Gatling guns on the front of the Batmobile, mowed down the back of a truck where there was a guy at, and the guy disintegrates from bullets. In his dream sequence, he's just running around with guns shooting people. You get to the end of the movie, he's just shooting guns again. And It's not that, I mean, if you watch read some of the old comics, he uses guns. Even in the Dark Knight Returns, while it does have some anti-gun sentiments clearly in it, the big tank thing he has shoots rubber bullets. And so you can find history of it in the old Tim Burton Batman movies. Batman kills people. But we live in a much more sophisticated era where people know of Batman as the no guns guy, with a psychology behind that. They've actually looked into it in like the Nolan films. They've talked about it in the comic books excessively. Like even in Batman the Animated Series, the starting point of the show Batman Beyond, which is a spinoff of that show, is that Batman, getting older, almost has a heart attack, is about to lose, and he grabs a gun out of panic and aims at it as a criminal, and then realizes, I've turned to these weapons that I so hate so much, and then stops being Batman because he realized what he'd done. And that's in a kid's cartoon. They're exploring the psychology of Batman and his hatred of guns. And then this movie, it just kind of throws that out, and it doesn't replace it with something better. Like, I'd be open to exploring a new interpretation of Batman, but I want to know why we're doing what we're doing. I don't want it to just be, Batman uses guns now, isn't that cool? Hey, look at these machine guns oh, look, Batman's running around with 2 pistols. Well, that's less interesting, because we're not talking about a character. We're just doing something that looks cool. I mean, I don't know their reasoning. I'd love to see an interview where Zack Snyder, Ben Affleck, and them really dig deep into, why was this an improvement? Why did it make it Batman better to have him use guns when you know the fanboys are going to get mad about it? And so I would love to know that, but Batman killing people, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make the character better in this film. And then kind of lastly, on just the purely bad, his motivations are really unclear, especially in the theatrical cut. I mean, what's going on is the plot is so confusing, and you have to fill in a lot of gaps yourself as to why things are happening. Questions are unanswered, and you're like, did that guy know he was going to blow up? Is Batman sending people to jail to get killed? Is he branding them to get them killed? How does all this stuff in Africa tie in with the hearings, and why are they blaming That's all really unclear in the theatrical cut, and a lot of that's clarified in the Ultimate Edition, and it makes for a much more cohesive narrative, specifically in regards to Luthor's plot and what he's trying to do and how much he's masterminding everything is much, much clearer in the Ultimate Edition. So if that was your kind of big complaint about the original, is Luthor's plot and how all these things fit together, the Ultimate Edition is much better in that regard. But still, overall, the film has big issues trying to help you understand people's motives, even in the Ultimate Edition, specifically the way they motivate Superman to battle Batman. Batman's motivation very clear. We understand where he's coming from. They portray the anger, the frustration, the scene of loss, the sadness that would drive him to anger and to frustration, and that would drive him to becoming more cruel, as the dialogue talks about so excellently and is portrayed so excellently as the things I talked about before. But with Superman, even in the extended version where you get little hints or you get some reporting into why Clark Kent doesn't like Batman, then when it comes to the final showdown in the movie, that's not where they go with that plot point. That's not what they discuss with. It's not all about their differences of ideologies and trying to stop crime and evil. No, it's because Lex Luthor kidnapped his mom, and so therefore they have to battle. One of them has a clear motive as to why he wants to battle this guy. This guy is just kind of manipulated into it, and everyone watching the scene is always thinking, yeah, but Superman, you could just fly up in the sky and say, hey, they kidnapped my mom. They got my mom. I don't want to fight you. Let's talk real quick. We don't need to fight. Like, you could do that real quick. And I think the power of the revelation at the end of the scene with the Martha that everyone makes fun of, it's not just that their moms have the same name. It's that for the first time, Batman's thought about Superman as a human. He's personalized him. Wait, he has a mom. He's a person with things he's afraid of. And so that moment of connection that happens through having moms under the same name, I can see why people don't like it. But I think it's not as bad as some people make it out to be. You can have that moment at the beginning of the scene if he just says, my mom's kidnapped. She's in danger. Help me save her. Okay, you could have done that. Or what you could do is you could have them get into a fight first. I mean, like, you just see the scene and it. The motivation is so forced and unnecessary and strange, and you can watch all kinds of videos on the internet about the plot holes and the rationales behind all of that. So if that's the good and that's the bad, you know that there's plenty more in this movie to talk about that's not so good. I'll call it the ugly. These are things in it that maybe weren't. I don't think they're necessarily bad the way they're done. They're just bizarre, weird decisions that I just don't know why they made these ugly, ugly decisions. The first one of those is the one a lot of people will say is bad, and that's the portrayal of Lex Luthor. The way Jesse Eisenberg plays him, that's bad is what most people say. I would just say it's weird. He's doing a good job playing this very odd character in the context of the movie with the character that they wrote, what they wanted it to be, and this more of a quirky Mark Zuckerberg zany version of Lex Luthor. He plays that fine, but I have the same feelings as almost everyone else that's been on the internet since they announced he was cast, is that the same movie that you just swap that Lex Luthor out for the Heisenberg, Walter White, Bryan Cranston version of Lex Luthor, where he's the charismatic personality to the public and then just this intense, intimidating character behind the scenes. That seems like the movie would be greatly improved, and so many critics would just be silenced by making this small change that's a safe change. But why would you not want that, since that's what Lex Luthor has been in the comics for 30 years? The whole Gene Hackman wacky scheme Lex Luthor guy, that version has been gone a long time ago. They reset it in the comic books. They reset it in Lois Clark, the TV show from 25 years ago. They reset it in Superman the Animated Series. They reset it in Smallville. Lex Luthor is not that wacky guy. He's this smart businessman. And so this movie seemed to take that model for him, but put the wacky template on top of that character. And so you get a very strange performance that we just kind of all think would prefer to be something else. Next one, I guess maybe this was bad, but the Justice League introduction scene, to say what everyone else has said, it's bizarre. Like, it's someone checking their email, and there's just designed by a graphic designer icons for each character that'll be great logos for the next movie, and then a video footage that just feels so fake, tactile, like it looks CW. There's scenes on the CW that look exactly like these scenes when they do scenes exactly like this, and it's just head-scratching how bizarre and poorly put together this sequence was. And more importantly for me is the placement of the scene. Because it's a scene that, generally speaking, you can kind of put at any point in the movie before Wonder Woman shows up and after Ben Affleck sends his email. And where they put it is after Lex Luthor has set the timer and says, "You've got 1 hour until I'm going to kill your mom." And so in the movie, as a filmmaking device, they created a literal ticking clock to give the movie tension. Like, all right, he's got to go right now to go and stop this, and this is about to happen. So it's supposed to build a tension, and things are supposed to be kind of like ratcheting up. Things are supposed to be moving quicker. And then we go off to check email? What? Like, why would you have the email checking scene at the point in the movie where you least want the email checking scene? And that's where they put it. It's very, very strange place to put it. Strange editing, strange pacing. And then the scene itself is just the laziest and weirdest way they could make it, could do this scene. And the Flash one is interesting. And the other two are just so blah that you're watching it. Oh, now we're going to see Aquaman and he swims away? What? Oh, look, we're about to see Cyborg. Wait, what is this scene that we're looking at? This is weird. And that's what we get. The other thing that I'd put in the ugly category is these dream sequences. I don't know what the deal is with Zack Snyder and liking dream sequences, but whether it's Clark Kent up in the mountains talking to his pa, or Batman dreaming about demons while shooting people with guns, and then the Flash shows up in, I guess, a time travel prophecy dream sequence, all of that. I mean, it's a well put together sequence that you could just cut that from the movie and it would be all the better for me. I mean, it's just very weird, out of place, very much Zack Snyder putting his Zack Snyderisms into the movie when it does not need to be there. And so overall, did not like those. I was kind of hoping some of that would be trimmed back in the Ultimate Edition. Wasn't expecting it, but then didn't happen either. And finally, the death of Superman in this movie just seems so odd, because if you think about Superman and what we've seen of him in this cinematic universe, he doesn't become Superman until the last half of the first movie, Man of Steel, and in that he's only been Superman for one day, so it's just his introduction, and it's only him fighting Kryptonians. And then we get this movie, and we get to see him save Lois at the beginning, but it's him just saving Lois. So up to this point, we've seen him fight Kryptonians, seen him save Lois, and then we have a sequence where it montages him doing a few things, but we don't really get the feel of him as Superman in action, of him as Superman the hero here. And then, what do we get? He ducks in the final battle. And so we've seen so little of Superman and so little to like root for him and like him and have our heart ripped out that he died. We just see this mopey guy that feels bad about being Superman but wants to help people, wants to use it for good, but like, golly jeepers, people don't like me, Lois. Mom, why don't people like me? And now he's dead, saving the people that didn't like him, and now they celebrate him in his death. And so you see that, and it feels like we needed this, as other people have said, a movie or two later where he's gotten to be the hero. We've gotten to be around him a lot more and get to know him a lot more. Compared to something I talk about quite a bit, Star Trek, when Spock died, the reason it carried so much weight was because you had a whole TV show that came before it, and so we'd spent so much time with him that the sacrifice really meant something. We felt a sense of loss, whereas we don't feel a sense of loss with a character that we've just kind of gotten to start to know, that we're sure is going to come back anyway. So with that, I think the biggest problem with this movie and why so many people don't like it, and just kind of a strange vibe from it, is really what I heard Dan Merle from Screen Junkie say, is that this movie feels like 5 better movies all crammed into one. So you've got a Man of Steel sequel that's asking the question, do we need a Superman? Should we have a Superman? And he's battling Lex Luthor. And you can see where that story's in there, and it's very interesting. You can see where there's the Batman movie about an aging, angry Batman dealing with the consequences of the world around him and that he can't save everyone. You can see where there's the Batman v Superman movie, where their two ideologies clash with one another. And you can see where the tension forms because of how each one of them does what they do. You can see where there's the Justice League movie, or the Dawn of Justice movie, where they're trying to pull all these people together to prepare to battle something bigger. And that seems like an interesting movie itself. And then you've got the death of Superman. Of course, this should be a very powerful, interesting story about when Superman finally faces someone he can't defeat and has to give up all. However, we get all of this crammed into one movie, and even the history of how this movie was made kind of gives a background that would explain why that would be, because what you see is that they first announced it, and it was the Man of Steel sequel with Zack Snyder and David Goyer coming up with a story, and David Goyer writing the script. So you get version 1. Shortly afterwards, they announce, no, Batman's going to be in this movie. So now it transitions to Batman and Superman, the movie. World's finest, Batman vs. Superman. Okay, so it went from Man of Steel sequel to Batman v Superman. Jump forward, and they announced Ben Affleck's in it. So Ben Affleck brings in his writer. So we now have moved to our new writer, Chris Terrio. And so now he is writing the movie. Okay, so it went from this movie to this movie to this different movie with a different writer, and then they say it's going to be called Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Okay, so now it's from this movie to this movie to this movie, and then they push the release date back a year. Like, you can just see where this movie started at one point and ended way over here, and the end result of the movie looks and feels like that. And so you can just watch the movie and think, you know, you could cut Wonder Woman out of this movie. Like, in a day, you could do the rewrite and take Wonder Woman out of this movie, and you still have the same movie. Nothing really has changed, just a few scenes are different. And then you can think about it, you can take all the Justice League references out of this movie, and you still have the same movie. Same basic plot. Then you can take Batman out of this movie, and you still have a working movie where Superman is asking the question, do we need a Superman? The world is asking, do we need a Superman? Lex Luthor doesn't like him. Lex Luthor's doing the things that he's doing in this movie to try and manipulate Superman. And then in the end of it, you get the Doomsday fight, and then he dies in there. You can see how all of these things happen. It just feels like they took, all right, we want to put Batman in it, and you crammed it into this original story, and then they took Wonder Woman, and you have Wonder Woman in there, and we need to have the Justice League introduction in there, and they just crammed it all in there. And then with all of that, they had multiple writers, and so you just kind of feel that, even to the level of what I talked about before of Bruce Wayne's dialogue is better than everyone else's because Academy Award-winning screenwriter Ben Affleck probably rewrote it. And therefore, you just kind of have a movie that feels kind of like a jumbled mess of competing visions, competing ideas, competing agendas, trying to set up something better for the future at the cost of what we have right now in front of us. And then also, I mean, the big problem with this movie is there's a lack of heroes in it. I mean, you have heroes doing good things, but you don't have them doing heroic things for the most part. You have Batman going to a warehouse to try and steal something and kills the thugs that get in his way. That doesn't come off heroic like he's trying to save someone, like you see at the end of the movie where he's saving Martha, so he goes in there desperately trying to save someone. Like, you can see it there, but you don't see a bunch of sequences of people in peril in Batman saving the day. You have montages of Superman doing that, but you don't really get the personalized feeling of he's saving people and the value of that. And even as you get that montage, as we talked about before, there's this kind of this morose, morbid kind of take on it. Do we need this man? Does he have the right? Can he should be stopping this? Well, he saved all these lives, but should he have saved all the lives? And what about the people he didn't save? And you're watching that thinking to yourself, like, what? Can we just, we can have that discussion. Please, let's have it. But why on earth can't we have some time enjoying him being a hero? So with all that said, if I was to summarize my feelings on the movie, and I've spent a lot of time knocking the movie, a lot more time knocking it than I have been praising it. But here's, at the end of the day, I enjoyed the movie and I found it entertaining. If we look at kind of my list of what do I want in the movie, does it have action that I enjoy? Check, we've got it. Does it have a fight scene between Batman and Superman that's really cool? It's what I've wanted to see for a long time that does cool stuff. Check, we have got that. Does it have a great new Batman that has great dialogue with Alfred? Check. Are some of the supporting characters a lot of fun to watch? Check. Did I feel bored? Was I frustrated during the movie? No, I enjoyed the ride as I went through the movie. So I have to look at all of that and say, I was entertained. I enjoyed the key things that I needed in this movie to work, and those things worked. And so for that reason, I gotta go positive with it for myself. At the same time, I've got to knock it for all those reasons I just mentioned. The movie has a lot of problems when it comes to the plot and the motivations, how it all ties together. And the frustration is really, after you watch this movie, you go, man, that Death of Superman could have been so great in 3 movies. Oh man, what if we'd had Man of Steel 2, then we had The Batman, and those movies sprinkled the tension between the two of them, and then we got this movie. And we really got to know both of these characters. We got to see Batman, how he was changed by the events of the original Man of Steel, and we didn't get that. And so that's the frustration. So overall, I'm going to go 7 out of 10 with the Ultimate Edition. It's a little bit better, a little bit more coherent than the one before it. It's not a great movie. It's an enjoyable movie for me. It's a good movie. And if I'm being honest, this is a movie that I'll probably watch quite a bit. I'll watch it just as much as I watch most of the Nolan movies, and as much as I watch Man of Steel, I'll watch this movie. But I can't really defend it to people that don't like it. I understand where you're coming from. So that's my take on Batman v Superman and kind of where I fall on the spectrum of things. I like it. I don't love it. I understand why you might hate it. If you like this video, please click that subscribe button as well as like this and tell me what you think about my opinions. If you think I'm dead wrong, tell me in the comment section. Thanks for watching.